I always hated the way he looked at me. Cold eyes like cracked ice on winter puddles. When my mom passed away, I was only 16, and suddenly the man I'd barely tolerated became my legal guardian, sitting at the head of our kitchen table like a king who just won a war. Frank, my stepfather, had never liked me either, and he didn't pretend to after Mom was gone. Her funeral was on a rainy Tuesday, and I remember watching his expressionless face as the priest read the last rites, wondering if he was even capable of crying. He wasn't. I cried enough for both of us. Then we went home and the nightmare began. Within a week, my mom's favorite things were packed into boxes and shoved into the attic. Her scent, that faint vanilla and lavender she always wore, was erased from the house as if she never lived there. Frank said it was too hard to keep her stuff around. I called bullshit in my head, but I didn't dare speak it. He had a temper. Not the loud, yelling kind, but the quiet, burning type that made you feel like you were shrinking when he looked at you. At first, I tried to stay out of his way. I ate in my room. I avoided the living room when he watched TV with a beer in hand, his belly rising with each breath like a balloon about to pop. He barely spoke to me except to give instructions. Clean the garage. Don't be late from school. Turn off that damn music. But it was when he started locking his office door that I really began to wonder what he was hiding. My mom never locked anything. She used to say, secrets grow like mold in the dark. But Frank, he kept that door bolted like Fort Knox. I wasn't supposed to care. I was supposed to be grieving, going to school, pretending life was normal. But something wasn't right. And I wasn't going to let her memory be buried along with her body. Not without answers. The first time I tried to get into his office, I told myself it was just curiosity. But deep down it was more than that, it was desperation. I needed a connection to my mom, something more than just the dusty photo on my nightstand. She and Frank had only been married for 3 years before she died. I never understood what she saw in him. He was quiet, brooding, and 30 years older than her. He listens, she once told me. But now, with her gone, all I heard was silence, and the ticking of the clock in that locked office. One afternoon, when Frank went out for groceries, I slipped a bobby pin from my drawer and knelt in front of the door like I'd seen in YouTube videos. I didn't think it would work. But the click of the lock turning made my heart skip a beat. The room smelled different from the rest of the house, like stale cigars and something else, like old paper and forgotten time. There was a desk in the corner, ancient and heavy-looking, with drawers lined up like soldiers. I opened the first one. Bills, receipts, nothing unusual. The second, a half-empty bottle of whiskey and some old photographs. Then the third, and that's when I found the letters. Dozens of them. All in my mother's handwriting. All addressed to Frank. But the dates, they didn't make sense. The newest one was dated only 2 weeks before she died. But she had already been in the hospital then, too weak to hold a pen. And yet the handwriting was perfect, full of emotion and warmth. I read the first line and froze. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. And I know she blames you. She. Me. The letter was about me. My hands were shaking as I unfolded the rest of the letter. Her handwriting, so familiar and neat, felt like a whisper from the past. I read the next lines out loud, barely above a breath. Please don't be angry with her. She's young, and she doesn't understand the choices I made. She won't for a long time. Maybe never. But I need you to promise me, Frank, take care of her. Even if she hates you. I sat on the floor of his office, letters scattered around me like pieces of a broken mirror, each reflecting a part of her I hadn't seen before. In another envelope dated months earlier, she wrote about the diagnosis, how she didn't want to tell me yet because she wanted one last normal summer. I watched her laugh by the lake, she wrote, and I kept pretending I wasn't dying. I covered my mouth to stop the sob. There was so much I didn't know. She talked about Frank like he was her anchor, her safe harbor. She said she had no family left and that if anything happened he would be all I had. And then there were notes about me. Pages and pages. How proud she was when I got a B in math after struggling all semester. How her heart broke every time I slammed my door. How she knew I resented Frank but hoped time would soften me. and buried near the bottom of the drawer was a small black notebook. Inside, in messy, rushed scrawl, she wrote about the day she changed her will. Frank doesn't want it. He says he's fine. But I need to make sure he's taken care of. And so is she. I just hope she forgives me someday for leaving too soon. I sat there for what felt like hours, surrounded by her voice, until the front door creaked open. Frank was home. I panicked. The letters, I couldn't let him know I'd found them. I shoved everything back into the drawer, slammed it shut, and relocked the door just as his footsteps echoed in the hallway. I darted to my room, heart pounding so loud I thought he'd hear it. That night I couldn't sleep. Everything I thought I knew about him, about her, about what had happened, was unraveling like a badly stitched seam. And still one question gnawed at me: if she loved him so much, why did I feel like he was hiding something? The next morning I watched him differently. Not just with suspicion, but with the ghost of guilt creeping through me like a fog. He moved around the kitchen like always, methodical, quiet, no unnecessary words. He poured black coffee, opened the newspaper, scratched his graying beard. I wondered how many mornings he had done this alone, reading letters from her that I never knew existed. Part of me wanted to ask him about them. But another part, the bigger part, was still angry. Angry that he had hidden them, angry that he locked away the last pieces of her like they were just paperwork in a filing cabinet. As I buttered my toast, he finally looked up. "You're quiet," he said, not as an accusation but as an observation. I stared at him. His face was a maze of lines and wear, and for a moment I couldn't remember what he looked like when he smiled. Had he ever smiled in front of me? "I'm just tired," I replied, and he nodded once, returning to his crossword. I skipped school that day. Pretended I was sick. He didn't press me. When he left for work, he still did odd jobs here and there, carpentry mostly. I went back into the office. This time I wasn't looking for memories. I was looking for answers. The letters had cracked the door open, but now I wanted to rip it from its hinges. I pulled every drawer. Checked behind the filing cabinet. Lifted the corners of the old rug. That's when I noticed it, a loose floorboard under the desk. My pulse quickened. I pried it up with the edge of a ruler. Beneath it was a metal lockbox. Heavy. Dusty. I didn't know what I expected: drugs, money, passports. What I found instead chilled me more than any of that. Inside were photos. Not of me. Not of my mom. But of another woman. Younger. Blonde. Smiling. And of a child, a toddler with big eyes and a crooked smile. Some of the photos were old and faded. Others looked recent. There were letters too, signed L. Most were short. Sweet. Almost romantic. And then one near the bottom, dated just a few months ago, with a line that nearly stopped my heart. "Does she suspect anything? You promised she would never find out about Lily." Lily. Who the hell was Lily? The name haunted me like a ghost clinging to the edges of my thoughts. Lily. Who was she? A lover? A daughter? Was Frank cheating on my mom the whole time she was dying? Or was it even worse? Had he started a second family while pretending to mourn the first? The letters from this mysterious L were affectionate but vague. There were no full names, no addresses. Just pieces. Fragments. "I miss your hands. Lily drew you another picture today. I worry about your stepdaughter." I read that last one 10 times, my heart sinking deeper with each pass. Your stepdaughter. That was me. Suddenly I wasn't just grieving or angry, I was betrayed. And confused. Why hadn't my mom written about this woman? About Lily? Was she lying to herself, or was she hiding the truth from me? Or maybe, and this was the most terrifying thought of all, maybe she didn't know. Maybe Frank had hidden it from her too. I took the letters, folded them into the waistband of my jeans, and tucked the box back under the floorboard. I needed answers. Real ones. So that night when Frank came home, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't pretend to watch TV. I waited until he had changed into his threadbare sweatpants and cracked open a beer, and then I stood in the doorway of the living room and said quietly, "Who's Lily?" The reaction was instant. He froze. His hand clenched around the can. Slowly he turned to look at me, and for the first time since my mother died, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't coldness. It was fear. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked, his voice low and flat. "I found the letters," I said. "The pictures. The box under the floorboard." He set the can down, exhaled through his nose like a bull trying to stay calm. "You were in my office. You locked away pieces of my mother like they didn't belong to me." "She asked me to," he said, and now his voice broke a little. "She didn't want you to see her falling apart. She wanted to protect you." "Did she know about Lily?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Silence. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had held her during the chemo nights, the same hands that now shook with an emotion I couldn't place. "No," he said. "She didn't know. And that's the worst thing I've ever done." He didn't speak for a long time after that. Just sat there, the weight of the years pressing into his spine like invisible bricks. I didn't move either. I couldn't. My limbs felt like stone. Finally he looked up, and the man who had once seemed made of granite now looked like a crumbling wall. "Before your mother," he began, his voice raw, "I had a life. A family. I was married. We had a daughter. Lily." My chest tightened. He wasn't cheating. He had a whole past I'd never known about. What happened to them? His eyes dropped to the floor. "My wife died in a car accident. Lily was too. I wasn't well after that. I lost myself. I drank. I fought people I shouldn't have. I was angry. God, I was so angry. Lily was taken from me by child services. They said I was unstable." His voice cracked. They were probably right. I felt like I was watching a stranger peel off his skin, revealing a different man underneath, one I didn't hate but didn't trust either. "And my mom?" I asked. "When did you meet her?" "At a grief support group," he said. "I wasn't looking for anyone. But she was light. Not sunshine, not loud and bright, but like a lamp in a dark room. Steady. Gentle. She saw the broken parts of me and didn't flinch." His hands rubbed together, nervous. "I didn't tell her about Lily. I was ashamed. I thought if I kept her in the past I could start over. And I did. With your mom. For 3 years I was someone better. I didn't drink. I didn't lie. Until your mom got sick." He paused, his jaw tight. "That's when I reached out. To the foster family that had Lily. Just to see her. Not to take her away. I wrote letters. Sent money. I just wanted to know she was okay." He looked up at me then. "That box you found, it's all I have left of her. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never meant for you to find it like this." I swallowed hard. My anger wasn't gone, but it had changed shape, from sharp and cold to heavy and sad. "She deserves to know you," I said, surprised at the words as they came out. Frank shook his head. "Maybe. But I'm not sure I deserve to know her." And in that moment I realized something terrifying. Maybe none of us are just heroes or villains in each other's stories. Maybe we're just people doing our best with what we have, and sometimes failing. The next few days were strangely quiet in the house. Not the cold silence from before, this was different. Thoughtful. Wary. Like we were walking on the edges of a fragile truth, afraid to break it with the wrong word. Frank didn't say much and neither did I. But something between us had shifted. It was like someone had opened a window in a long-sealed room. The air wasn't fresh yet, but at least it was moving. I kept thinking about Lily. A girl out there somewhere, my not-quite sister, someone I'd never met but now couldn't stop picturing. What did she look like? Did she know anything about me? Did she even remember Frank? One night I knocked on his office door. This time it wasn't locked. He was sitting at the desk, one of Mom's letters in his hand. He didn't look surprised to see me. "Do you want to meet her?" I asked. My voice felt small but steady. Frank's eyes flickered. "It's complicated." She deserves to know the truth. So do you, he said, then pulled out a file folder from the bottom drawer. Inside were court documents, caseworker reports, and a thick envelope with photos. He handed it to me carefully like it was fragile. These are from last year. She's with a good family. They moved to Oregon. I never reached out directly, I didn't want to risk messing up her life again. I flipped through the pictures. There she was, Lily. Big eyes, a shy smile, and something else. Something that looked like my mom's warmth, even though they'd never met. Does she know about you at all? I asked. He shook his head. Not really. I think her foster parents told her I was gone. That I wasn't coming back. Probably better that way. Do you want to meet her? I asked again, more firmly this time. He sighed, leaned back, stared at the ceiling like it had answers. Every day. But I don't know if I have the right. I looked down at the photo of Lily holding a school project, a popsicle stick house. There was something beautiful and tragic about it. A child building a home out of scraps. Maybe that's what we were all doing. You helped build my life, I said softly. Even if I didn't want you to. He looked at me, eyes shining. And I'd do it again. No matter how much you hated me for it. I didn't say anything more. I just handed him the picture of Lily, and for the first time since my mother died I saw him cry. Frank didn't talk much the next day, but I could tell something had shifted. He moved slower, more deliberately, like each step carried a decision he wasn't ready to make. I spent most of the afternoon staring at that photo of Lily. There was a tug in my chest I couldn't explain, not quite jealousy, not quite longing, but something in between. This girl I'd never met had been a secret part of my life for years, and now that I knew about her I couldn't look away. By evening I found Frank in the garage, sanding down an old piece of wood. He used to do that a lot, turn junk into something usable. Maybe it was his way of making sense of the messes in his life. She's 12 now, he said suddenly without looking at me. Her birthday was in March. I always send something through the caseworker. Nothing big. Books. Drawing supplies. She likes to sketch. I leaned against the doorframe. Do you think she ever wonders about you? I hope not, he said, setting the sanding block down. I hope she's happy enough not to care. I crossed my arms. But what if she does care? What if she's wondering who her dad really is? What he looks like? What kind of man he is now? He turned to me slowly. His face was tired, but there was a trace of something else there too, maybe hope, maybe fear. And what if I disappoint her? You might, I said, not sugarcoating it. But keeping the truth from her? That disappoints her for sure. We stood in silence for a long time. The air smelled like sawdust and motor oil, familiar, grounding. Finally, Frank wiped his hands on a rag and said, "If I wrote her a letter, would you read it first?" I nodded. "Yeah. I will." He smiled, a small, cracked thing, but it was the first real smile I'd ever seen from him. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. This wasn't just about Lily. Or even about my mom. This was about us, two people both broken in different ways trying to build something out of the rubble. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about all the things we hide from each other, out of shame or guilt or love that's too complicated to name. And somewhere in that swirling mess of thoughts, a memory came back to me. Something my mom used to say when I was little and scared of the dark. The truth doesn't always fix things, sweetheart. But lies never do. Maybe it was time to stop lying, to her, to each other, to ourselves. Maybe it was time to let Lily see the truth. The letter arrived a week later, slipped under my bedroom door in a plain white envelope with no return address. My hands trembled as I broke the seal and unfolded the paper inside. The handwriting was unmistakably Frank's, uneven, hesitant but genuine. "Dear Lily," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you'll hate me for it. Maybe you won't want to know me at all. But I need you to understand why I left, why I couldn't be the father you deserved." He wrote about the accident that took her mother, about his own struggles with grief and addiction, about losing custody and feeling like the ground had fallen away beneath him. He wrote about meeting my mom, about the hope he found in her, and about the promise he made to be better, not just for her but for me too. I'm not proud of how things ended. I'm sorry for the silence, the absence, the mistakes. But if you ever want to know me, really know me, I'm here. Waiting. I read it over and over, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and something close to forgiveness. Then I called Frank. Do you think she'll write back? I asked. He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I hope so. And if she doesn't, at least I tried. The next days were filled with a nervous energy. We researched, found the contact information for Lily's foster parents, and even sent a tentative letter introducing ourselves. It felt like walking on a tightrope, one wrong step and everything could fall apart. But as I looked at Frank during those moments, I saw something I hadn't before. A man trying to mend the pieces of his broken life, willing to risk everything for a chance at redemption. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Days turned into weeks and I kept checking my phone, waiting for a reply that might never come. The silence was deafening, a reminder of how fragile hope can be. Frank tried to keep busy, working on small repairs around the house, gardening, anything to distract from the waiting. But I saw the way his eyes lingered on the door, as if expecting it to swing open with Lily's arrival. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. My heart pounded as I opened it. This is Lisa, Lily's foster mother. We received your letter. Lily is still processing everything, but she wants to meet you both. I dropped the phone, disbelief flooding through me. I ran to find Frank, breathless, tears already welling up. She wants to meet us, I said. He nodded, voice cracking. Then we have to be ready. The days leading up to the meeting were a whirlwind of emotions: hope, fear, excitement, and doubt. We rehearsed what to say, how to explain years of absence, how to show we cared despite the mistakes. When the day finally came, we stood outside a small community center in Oregon, nervous and unsure. Then she appeared, Lily, a tall girl with eyes that mirrored my mother's warmth and a cautious smile that slowly unfolded. The first moments were awkward, filled with tentative questions and guarded glances. But as the afternoon passed, something shifted. Walls came down, stories were shared, and laughter, tentative but genuine, broke through the silence. By the time we parted, we knew this was only the beginning, a fragile, uncertain new chapter filled with hope, forgiveness, and the possibility of family. And as Frank and I drove home in silence, I realized that sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most unexpected healing.